Good morning and welcome back to East by West Farms, where we grow what we eat and we eat what we grow. In this video, I'm gonna bake a bread. Here's the story. I've been traveling, came back a week and a half ago, and with COVID-19, I thought it's best if I isolate myself. I don't have any symptoms, I've got tested before I came back to the US, so everything's fine, but just to make sure. Haing put some food in my car, I drove down to the farm, and that's where I am. Now I've got enough food, I've got enough supply, but I don't have bread. Also don't have yeast. What I did in the last week, I started a sourdough that turned out very well. I'm going to use the sourdough to bake a bread. Sourdough is really easy to make. It's really all you need is flour and water. What I'm doing with the sourdough is fairly straightforward too. I put some of the sourdough in the bowl. I'm going to leave some over, because that's going to be the next starter for the next batch. The next thing I'm going to do is I put some flour in here. Don't have any measurement tools here, so yeah, I'll just do what feels right. Mix it all together. The other thing I have is 2 eggs. I warmed up these eggs a little bit. The key for sourdough and any yeast-based doughs is to use warm ingredients. Mix this all together. Next thing is I have some milk. Oops, that milk is pre-warmed. Again, I'm using all warm ingredients. Mix it all together. Just like that. Sometimes it's easier to use your hands. Now the dough for bread needs to be somewhat liquid, so it is not like a yeast doughs that are somewhat less sticky. And this is pretty much it. I added a little bit of oil, olive oil, and some more water. So the dough is fairly sticky. Right, it does not, it sticks a bit to the hands. And that's exactly the consistency I need for the sourdough bread. I'm using a non-kneading technique for this bread, which means I leave it rest, let it rise, flip it over, do it again after 45 minutes, flip it over a few more times until the dough is risen enough. Form it into loaves of bread, put it in the oven. So it's a very simple, straightforward procedure. Here's how to maintain the sourdough. What I do have is I have a little bit of sourdough starter left. And the thing I'm doing is simply taking some flour. Again, in this case, I've got organic atta flour, which got from the Middle Eastern store. We've been trying all sort of flour. I've used regular flour. I've used organic flour. Now what I noticed with organic flour is that it works better, right? I get better bubbles. Maybe it's the environment, maybe it is the yeast that's in the air. I don't know, but I've detected a trend that organic flour seems to work better for sourdough. I'm taking the same amount of water, a spoonful in this case. And then I mix them all together. simply by using my chopsticks or whatever you want to do. You could use a fork or something. Chopsticks work well for me. Mix it all together. Now this is a little bit solid, so let me put a little bit more water in here. This water is pre-warmed. I do avoid cold water for yeast. That anything yeast-based likes warm water. Not hot, not cold, but just warm water, like warm water. A little bit more. All right, and that's really all it takes to maintain the sourdough. I do that process every day. I add a spoon of flour and a spoon of water. And I'm getting a consistency that's kind of like honey. I cover it up, let it stand out at room temperature. I've been waiting 45 minutes. The dough has been fermenting during this time. And every 45 minutes what I'm doing is I'll take the dough and flip it and stretch it, flip it over, stretch it, flip it over, stretch it, flip it over, turn it around and let it ferment for another 45 minutes. I'm going to do the same process 3 or 4 times, sometimes more, sometimes less. I've been folding the dough 4 times now, I think, every 45 minutes, and that turned out pretty good. The next thing is to form the dough into loaves of bread. To do this, I cut the dough into 2, so I'm gonna have 2 loaves of bread. I usually try to be somewhere in the 750 gram to 1 kilogram size of loaves. Before doing that, I have to get some tension in the dough. So I'm flattening the dough out, and then I fold the dough by 1/3, like so. There we go. Just like that. Same thing here. And I pull the dough over. This gives the tension in the dough and in the bread at the end of the day. I leave the dough rest for another half hour to 45 minutes, and come back, form the final loaves, and then get the bread into the oven. The final step is another rolling of the bread. To do this, flatten it out again, like this. There we go. Pull it over, this time to the middle. Pull the other side over to the middle. And then roll it into a bread-shaped loaf. Okay, I've got number 1. Number 2. This also gets rid of the bubbles, air bubbles that might be in the bread. Here we go. That looks pretty good. Put tension in here. Very good. And roll it out. Here we go. Another half hour, and then it is ready for baking. Now I mentioned that this is an emergency bread. I'm not prepared for that. Usually I would put the bread in a Dutch oven, but I don't have the Dutch oven here. So I found these dishes here. That's Pyrex, so that should be oven safe. And I've got that here, Fire King. That should be oven safe too, I presume. Put this bread in here. Now this doesn't have a cover. One more thing I do, I take a sharp knife and put some slashes in here. So this bread, when it rises, has a defined way of splitting open. And I'll do the other one the other direction. I'll preheat the oven to the maximum, which is 550 degrees Fahrenheit. Close this up, wait half an hour. The oven is preheated. There we go. I keep them at medium height, 10 minutes at 290 degrees. Then I switch the temperature down by 30 degrees to 250 degrees centigrade, which is 480 degrees Fahrenheit. Leave it there for another 20 minutes. I had the bread in the oven, baked it, switched it off, let it in the oven overnight to cool down. Maybe not the classic thing to do, but it works. Here are the breads, one in the Pyrex dish. Take this out. Yep. So a good bread has a hollow sound. That one is okay, I guess. This one here. Yep, not too bad. I've got my bread knife. That's pretty dull. I need to sharpen it. I'll do this in the next video. It's important not to cut your fingers with dull knives. That's easy to slip and cut them. Let's see. Oh man, this is dull. Okay, let's see. So the bread looks nice. It's a nice fluffy structure. It is certainly done. It's baked all the way through. Some crust outside. Now I did not inject any steam while baking. This gives you the crust that you get, that you know from the artisan's bread store. I believe for an emergency bread, that turned out really good. I mean, it's good enough for me. This is, of course, it is not an artisan bread. It's not a bread that's cooked or baked to a certain standard, Italian, whatever bread. It is really just a bread that's done in a pinch. I think it's very workable. Thanks for stopping by at East by West Farms. I hope this content was useful. If you want to see more of this kind of content, please subscribe. If you have a comment or suggestions, please leave them below. And if you like what you've seen, give us a thumbs up.